Hey guys, welcome to hey guys, welcome to another live show, another live She Knows Arsenal match reaction for Arsenal 2, Fulham 1. Make sure you guys are smashing the likes. I tried to change the title, but it wouldn't let me. So it's meant to say 2-1. Saka's back and injuries pile up. That's exactly what we're going to talk about. So I think the poll worked, because YouTube hated me. Yes, the poll is going. So go ahead and vote for man of the match. Please and thank you. And yeah, we're going to go ahead and get started. Let me just pull this up. Yup. Make sure you obviously let me know if you guys can hear me and all that kind of stuff, because you know how it is around here. Technical difficulties are definitely who I am. But yeah, today is a day of probably mixed emotions. I think it's really nice to play against Fulham and win. When's the last time we've really done that? I'm trying to think. Last season, I think we dropped points to them each time that we played them. Yeah. So it is nice to play against them and actually bag all 3 points. I think it was a game of 2 halves where the first half was incredibly flat and we still ended up 1-0 up. And then the second half was much better, especially once Saka came on, which I think, again, Saka makes everybody around him better. And we probably should have scored 3 or 4 goals, if we're honest. I think, Martinelli needs to be onside, for the chance that Odegaard makes for him. Odegaard also put Timber in, and Timber probably should have done better with the shot, So, and there were plenty of times where Martinelli got to the end line and, cut it back, and, we didn't get the right shots off or whatever. So I definitely think we could have scored more. But the second half was like a completely different team. I know that we conceded the goal, which was kind of a sloppy goal to concede. I think you could see MLS looked a little tired, which makes sense because this is probably the most football he's ever played, like real men's football, starting for Arsenal and starting for England. So off of the back of that international break, he did look leggy, although I think he still played really well. Beyond that, I thought the second half was pretty much flawless. And seeing Saka back out there for Arsenal was just a breath of fresh air. Everything on the right-hand side just made sense again. And that's no shade, to Ethan, but he's just our best player and he just makes everybody around him better and it just clicks better. And him and Odegaard really do have like a great relationship. And I think Odegaard looked a lot better when Saka was out there too. The left-hand side, though, I do think that Martinelli it was either he got engaged and he's feeling himself, or he saw the interviews that Ola Aina and Dejed Spence did about him, and not about him, but they did, and they basically acted like they didn't rate him. That's the best I've seen Martinelli play in 2 seasons. This is the best that he's played since the 2022-2023 season. He absolutely cooked Castagna inside and outside. The final ball wasn't always perfect, but there at least was an attempt to get the ball across to his teammates. He just, I think for Saka's goal, he was really good for that goal. I just feel like, where's this been? It's been 2 years. Where has it been? Hopefully this is the beginning of him getting back into a little bit of form, because it's been a long time, but this is the best he's played in 2 seasons. That is the closest that he has looked to the 2022-2023 season. And when he made that run down the middle and Odegaard passed it to him and he should have been onside, I'm like, where have those runs been? Where have the out to in runs been? Why are we accessing central spaces all of a sudden, but we just could never do it before? What the fuck is going on? So for me, Martinelli is the man of the match. And I don't even think it's really that close. Saka for just like the warm and fuzzies, probably, you'd put him in there. I think Marino actually had a good game, scored the opening goal, and I think had a good game overall. Um, Odegaard, much better second half than first half. I thought Partey was really good today. I thought Rice was really good today. And I think the defense what it usually is, really sturdy, sound, whatever. Um, and those are the pros. The cons to the game are that we've lost potentially Timber and Gabriel. Gabriel has pulled his hamstring. That looked like a hammy tear. And if that's the case, we know he's going to be out probably for the rest of the season. So going into the games against Real Madrid, where the best part about Arsenal is the defense and that center back pairing. It's it's a concern. Kiwior today got worked by Traore, and we should have conceded then. Munoz or whatever his name is, missed the wide open header. But if that's what Fulham will do to you, what do you think Real Madrid is going to do to him? You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's highs and lows. You get Saka back, and you get a really good game from Martinelli, but then you potentially have lost Timber and Gabriel, ahead of the biggest game of your season. So, I don't know. It's rough with the smooth. It's par for the course for this particular season. And, I'm really happy that we got the win. I was really impressed by some of the things that I saw in the second half in terms of the way that we attacked the game. Because again, this season has been very poor in terms of movement in the final third, the decision making in the final third, being dangerous, creating chances. So I am happy to have seen some of the things that I saw, but I am very concerned now going into the games against Real Madrid, because I just don't know what we're going to look like. It cannot be Kiwior and Saliba, but we can talk about that on another day. Johnny says the only thing is I only listened to the match. I don't know what Martinelli did for the rest of the game, but those 3 phases of play I've seen him in were all 3 shit. I mean, you didn't watch the game, so I think that's enough in itself. There's no. I think what ends up happening is when people have turned their back on a player, they want so badly for whatever to be right. And so there's always like this desperation to still say a player played shit, even though our eyes said what they said. Now, you didn't watch the game, so that's all I needed to read. You didn't watch it. Martinelli was the clear man of the match. He was very good the entire game. And that doesn't mean that we don't need a left wing. That doesn't mean that we don't need to upgrade upon him. That doesn't mean anything. It just means that on this particular game, he played incredibly well. And it's okay to say that. Sai says White only has a knock. Apparently, we need him back badly. Victor says, brother, you didn't watch the game. Let it rest. You have zero opinion right now. It is what it is. Martinelli was really, really good today. And I'm somebody that does not particularly think Martinelli is that great, and we need to improve upon him, if not replace him. He was the man of the match today. Kevin said Thomas Partey was superb as well. I think he played really well today. I said that earlier. Author said we had 6 CMs on the pitch. Martinelli was the only threat till Saka came on. Chemist says our left-hand side really stepped up for us. Let's see. Boy says Martinelli come good at the end of the game with Saka on the pitch. And I think just in general, I thought he was good even before Saka came on. Like, I don't want to discount the work that he did before that. Arsenal looked better as a whole with Saka, but I don't want to ignore the fact that Martinelli was really, really good before that, so I just want to put that out there. Diaz says, big up Jess in the chat. Felix says, well done, Gunners. Martinelli was man of the match, but injuries to Gabriel and Timber was the low point. Absolutely such a low point, because especially when it comes to Gabriel, it's just there's no comparison. Can you guys hear the TV in the background? Because it just randomly turned on, which makes me think the dogs stepped on the remote. If it's too loud, I will go and turn it off. But if you guys are kind of like, okay, I'll just like keep going. Mr. Gegenpress says, I don't think Ethan is a left wing. He seems more like a left center mid, attacking mid. He very rarely tries to overlap, which puts himself and Odegaard in the same positions, making that left wing redundant. Um, I don't know. I think, yeah, he's definitely not a left wing. Um, if you mean is he a right wing? Maybe that's what you mean because that's what he played today. I just think like one, Ethan and Saka, because when people were talking crazy on Saka's name a couple of weeks ago, I was like, you guys do this every single time. You guys forget how good Saka is. And then when you see him again, it's like, oh, yeah, he really is top three best wingers in the right wingers in the world, and that's basically what we're talking about. We're talking about the difference between a top three right winger in the world over the past several seasons against a 17-year-old, 18-year-old, whatever. Yeah, 18-year-old, just coming into the side and is a top talent. But let's stop speaking crazy on Saka's name. Saka is who he is. And so I wouldn't really say too much about what Ethan is and what he's not at this stage. I just think when you see the difference between him and Saka, you see where Ethan needs to get to. And again, it was just a couple of weeks ago where people were talking crazy on Saka's name. Oh, when Saka comes back, there's going to be all these questions and all this kind of stuff. There really is no questions. Our right-hand side kind of is what it is. Ethan will fill in those two positions and grow, as he gets older. And I do think that he'll eventually end up in midfield, but the hierarchy is pretty much set, So I don't know what to tell you guys. Victor says we need to get Ethan closer to goal. The guy is not a touchline winger, which I definitely hear that. I think it's difficult because Timber doesn't necessarily offer like the best overlaps. I think Timber tends to be narrow, and then Ethan wants to be narrow, and Odegaard wants to be narrow. All of them are kind of like in the same line, kind of like parallel. That's the word, right? Like parallel or like in the same line as like the edge of the 18, so they're all kind of there, and there's all this space from the 18 to the touch line where there's like nobody really occupying that space and allowing people to come inside. And I just think that is a symptom of having two players that are desperate to cut in on that side. I don't think there's anything necessarily that we need to like come to any sort of conclusions. I do think Ethan's best way of integrating into the team right now is through right wing, and he will eventually get to the attacking mid position at some stage. Let's just chill on Ethan a little bit. It's really not that deep. World Boss says just talking facts, and I love it. I need to see more from Martinelli. He was really good today. Red Smoke says big up Starboy. Nuances of Fate says Madrid getting cooked by Sociedad, by the way. Sai says fucking hell. My main question, having not watched, was how is Kiwior? And I've seen Kiwior needs to go in the summer at least five times. Sai, I'll be really honest. I like Kiwior, but it's anybody that we bring that's going to be a backup to Saliba and Gabriel is going to leave us wanting, because that particular partnership is so strong. Like it just is. It's so strong. But Kiwior is weak and gets touched every time he comes out on the pitch. There's always one glaring moment where you can just say, yeah, he's not good enough, is he? And that hurts to say, because I do think Kiwior has quality, but it's not just about Saliba and Gabriel being so good. It's about him just not being able to deal with the physicality of the Premier League. He's light, he's slow, he makes these weird errors. Like, I will say that on the time that he got cooked by Traore, the original sin did come from Saliba allowing the ball to drop. We know, we get taught that, in recreation when we're children, do not let the ball bounce. And he let the ball bounce, and then it got over to Kiwior, and Kiwior couldn't handle it because all it took was Traore just shoving him a little bit, and that was it. He took a terrible touch, and then boom, they were basically in on goal. So yeah, Kiwior, it is what it is. If it was me, I'd find a different solution. It's so unfucking fortunate that both Ben White and Calafiori are compromised, so because if I had to just make up something on the fly, my first inclination would be to play Calafiori at left center mid. that's what I would probably do. I think the minimal games that he's played there, he's been good, but I don't think there's any question that, if you have to put them at left center mid, Calafiori is a much more consistent player in the back. And his main issues are playing out wide and getting cooked by fast wingers. But, a center back pairing of Saliba and Calafiori with Miles Lewis-Skelly at left back and Timber, if Timber does come back, if not Timber, then White, makes me feel a lot more comfortable than any sort of scenario that would require Kiwior to play against Real Madrid. John says Skelly was off today. I honestly, I just think that he looked tired. He's playing the most football and he's playing men's football now. And so it's not out of the realm of possibility that being a starter for Arsenal and then also playing 2 games, like full 90s or almost full 90s for England over this international break, has kind of gotten him kind of like out of whack. He looked more tired to me than off per se, but I kind of get what you're saying. It's really not that big of a deal. Michael says MLS very suspect defensively. We're very quick to flip on a player. Miles Lewis-Skelly didn't have his best game today, and neither did Ethan. And it's like everybody wants to be super definitive about a player. Very suspect defensively. This, Ethan cannot play right wing. He's not a this, he's not a that. These are fucking young ass players. Relax. If you come into any definitive conclusion about 2 18-year-olds that just came into the team maybe 2 or 3 months ago, relax, take a chill pill, smoke a blunt, relax for 5 seconds, get a drink of wine, get something, because there's nothing wrong with MLS. It was just looked tired. He just looked leggy to me. Relax. It was just MLS for 5 seconds ago was literally the best thing. And y'all were talking crazy on Saka's name not too long ago for Ethan. We're fucking lax. What are we talking about? John says Kiwior and playing quarterfinal every year really bothers me. I know he will cost us next week. Arthur says, hats off to Marino for scoring a half chance today. I just think, I think the announcer said it or the commentator said it, and it's just so simple, but we know it's the team. We know it's true. If you don't shoot, you don't score. And I think, it wasn't the best moment or anything, but just like we conceded kind of like a lucky-ish type of goal because they took a shot and it bounced off of Saliba. We finally got that same luck on the other end. Take more shots and shit will happen, Put balls into dangerous areas in the box and things will happen. Marino, I think, is doing a good job as a makeshift striker. It is what it is. I will not say a bad thing about somebody playing pretty much out of position, at this stage. But he is scoring goals. So, I mean, what else can you say? He's scoring fucking goals. Anthony says, please give Martinelli credit. No need to slaughter him tonight. Anthony must have just got here. Anthony, I'm going to assume that you just got here or you're talking to the chat. I've actually said we actually did the Martinelli part early where I said he was far and clear man of the match. And for anybody that's trying to minimize his performance because they have been slandering him for months, there's nothing wrong with saying he played super well today. It doesn't change anything, at least for me, in terms of how I see him in the grand scheme of what we're doing. But today he was fabulous. This was his best performance since the 2022-2023 season. This is the first time that he has looked really, really good in 2 seasons. And so I'm hoping that this is turning a new leaf for him. But I've already been through that bit. Braintail says, Kiwior needs a big game to show us what he can do. I don't even know if he needs a big game to show us what he can do. I think it is what it is, Braintails. I don't think that a game against Real Madrid is going to be a scenario where Kiwior just becomes a really good player overnight. He tends to get really rattled in the biggest moments, and he even gets cooked in moments that are not that deep. He's not somebody that particularly gives you a lot of confidence, where I've seen Calafiori play in big games and have big moments and do great things, whether that's for his national team or for us. So we pretty much need to hope that Calafiori is fit by next fucking week or whatever it is. If not, we need to shift some things around. I'll tell you right now that I would play Declan Rice back there before I played Kiwior 100%. Even if that meant having to, play somebody else 9 and put Marino in midfield and drop Rice back to the center back. There is no scenario in which I go, you know, uh, next when we play against Real Madrid where Kiwior is in the starting 11. It's just we can't. He unfortunately has become somewhat of a Rob Holding, which is unfortunate, but it's just a loss if he's out there, not because like he's the worst player that I've ever seen, but he's just going to make a huge blunder. And he's also going to make everybody else nervous. Arteta needs to look at that and not trust him and just prevent it from even happening from the beginning. And that hurts to say because I like Kiwi, but this is just not the situation to have him in. He's way too rattled. Seeing Sane, a player that hasn't really cooked in a million years, cook him last season in the quarterfinals at the M's, was very, very, very tough to watch. Gunnarola says no, Kiwior needs to be binned ASAP. He's not fit to even be a sub. Mr. Gegenpress says Timber center back, 5 right back against Real Madrid. Partey against Vinny Jr. Is there another? There's got to be something else we can do. Shamaria says Kiwior starting as Arteta pleading us to lose the game. Arthur says Rice was impressive in the 6th. The second goal and Nelly offside goal came from Rice breaking up play. Our midfield cannot be neglected in the summer. Zip says Declan Rice in center back is a great shout because Kiwior lacks composure and aggression. Lost defenders have at least one of those things. John says I know Berta has already identified the first player to be sold. Interesting that Berto was in the stands. I'm sure he was struggling to keep his eyes open in that first half because it was so boring. I was struggling shit. Like I was like, trying to stay up. But this was a good game, I think, for him to see what we have. I think he saw kind of like the best and worst of certain players. I think this was a clear game to see some of the gaps up front 100%. So he has a big job ahead of him in the summer. He has to get some renewals done, some big renewals as well. You've seen Kiwior, you need to bin him off. We ain't got no striker. There's a lot of stuff, but, I wonder what he thought about Martinelli because maybe he would feel differently than what we felt over the last 2 seasons. But if there was ever a game for Martinelli to impress somebody, it was fucking today. John P says we need Ben White to play against Everton. He needs to be ready now. Jado says Odegaard ghosting us again. Very interesting that you say that because that lets me know you didn't watch the game. This was regurgitated from probably like a couple of weeks ago. Did you miss when he put the ball right in for Martinelli and Martinelli was offside? Did you miss when he gave the ball straight to Timber and Timber probably should have scored? Did you miss when he put the ball into the box from a free kick and Saliba should have done better? I mean, he could have had 2 or 3 assists. So, yeah, that was regurgitated from a couple weeks ago. Gunnarola says that performance probably put Berta to sleep more than jet lag. Karubal says even in the first half, Martinelli was the only one trying to create something, which I definitely agree with. But yeah, it was a very interesting game. Shamaria says I felt Berta's aura through the TV screen. Davil says we just have to pray White is fit for next week. Then do White, Saliba, Kiwior cannot play. Why I would even do it depends on Timber because you just have so many things. You have to hope that 2 of Ben White, Calafiori, or Timber are fit. If you get 2 of those, then you've got some options. If Calafiori is fit, stick him at left center back and play Ben White at right back or Timber. If Calafiori is not fit, but the other 2 are, then you could play Timber at right-sided center back and Ben White at right back or vice versa. You have options. You need 2 of them to be fit, though. 1, and it's still looking really, really suspect. But if you can get White and Timber or White and Calafiori or Calafiori and Timber, then you have options to try to make it shake, So we just got to, do one of those. You know what I mean? Gunnarola says one of Calafiori or Gabriel needs to be fit. Lord. Johnny D says 3-3 Madrid, even with reserves, big dogs get it. That's crazy. 3-3. Didn't you guys just say it was 3-1 a couple minutes ago? Shamara says Madrid is our biggest game of the season. I think we'll end up risking one of them. John says, with the way Adama was sprinting, I don't know if White can handle Mbappe. I mean, we just have to do with what we have. I think, it's unfortunate we've had our best defense for all this time, and like now it's looking super sus, but it is what it is. We're just gonna have to go with what we got. Foxy says, good win for you lot. Nice return for Saka. Saka just makes me makes us look so much better and so much different. I think again, when people were saying that, Ethan higher ceiling this and more, more well-rounded that and all this kind of stuff, it's not that I don't think Ethan has so much talent. I just think how quickly we forget what life is like with Bukayo. And the difference between Bukayo and some of our other attackers is you can give him the ball and he's going to have actions where he can do his own thing. He'll cut in, cut left, cut right. He can ping the ball. He can pass it between the line. He can do so many different things, take a decent shot, all that kind of stuff. He's in the right place at the right time. And so having one kind of like inevitable forward, we see what a difference that makes. Just imagine if you had three, Johnny D says, I don't know if that was a good win. Top four was never threatened unless the minds of people who know little about football. No Pressure FC was always going to get second after the title is out of sight. I still think it was a good win. Foxy says that Muniz miss for Fulham, though, what a shocker. Was easier to hit the target. McCombs was saying like, oh, well, if they had scored that, then things would have been so different. But I just feel like we also had chances where we really should have put the ball in the back of the net. I really do think that Martinelli has to be onside for the chance that Odegaard creates for him in on goal. And there was also the chance that Timber had where Odegaard puts him in on goal. We have to, if we score one of those or any of the number of, little kind of chances that we had in the box, it would have been a completely different game anyway. Jordan says, I'm convinced Real Madrid are involved in witchcraft or something. How do they always find a way to play playing so mediocre? They just have really good attackers. John says, Adama just gave us a glimpse of how Mbappe, Vinny, Rodrigo will outpace Kiwior as he starts. He cannot start. Ibby says Kiwior is just really awful against pace. I'm worried he cannot play. And this is where I want to see Arteta, if Arteta has grown, because anybody could have told you that we were putting our title hopes basically on the line by playing Rob Holding at the back end of the 2022-2023 season. I felt like there were too many people that were underestimating the ripple effect of having a Rob Holding, a player that couldn't even muster an appearance for Crystal Palace, by the way, in our back line, in kind of like a fragile young team that is going up for the title against one of the best sides that we've ever seen in Premier League history. I really do think people underestimated the ripple effect and the knock-on and the dominoes that set off. Yes, did other people make mistakes? Absolutely. But just his inclusion alone made us food back there. It really, really did. And so I want to know that Arteta has grown from that and will just mitigate the situation. And I don't care if it hurts Kiwior's feelings. I don't care if he cries at night. Give him a blanket and a bottle and send him packing. I don't care. We need to do anything else, even if that means putting Declan Rice back there. Even if that means somebody that's on the edges, maybe because top four is pretty much solidified and this is kind of all we have. So if there's a time to risk, this would be it, So I'm fully expecting Kiwior not to start. If he does, sayonara. John says, Arteta has not grown. I know he will disappoint me next week with the lineup. Marcus says, put Tierney there. Ibby says, if White can be ready, put Timber center back and White right back. That's kind of what I'm thinking too. Like I said, two of Calafiori, White, or Timber needs to be fit for this game. If you have at least two of them, you have options and different types of options. My ideal scenario would be Calafiori be fit, one of them at the very least, because then I know there's somebody that naturally plays left-sided center back. You don't have to slide Saliba over. I don't like the look of Saliba on the left-hand side. If you see him play there for France, he just it's not the same. He's still fabulous, but it's not the same. So idealistically, like if there was one player that I had to make fit with magic, it would be him. If I don't get him and it's just White and Timber, we can still make it shake. John P says Tierney has pace. Scorpion says Timber is injury prone. No, he's not. He got a contact injury today. And he has come back from an ACL better than I've seen anybody else, really. So I don't know if he's injury prone. Again, I think there's a tendency from this fan base in particular to be incredibly dramatic over things that are just normal. The fact that he's even been able to play as much as he has done shows you that he's not injury prone. Anybody coming back from an ACL is going to be in and out for probably 6 months or so, just trying to get back up to fitness. And, I don't know what world Timber, who's played as much football as he has for us this season post ACL, is injury prone. Jagoon says, I'm not even joking. Play Tierney over Kiwior at center back. Timber's fine. Life of BOJ says, Arsenal fans love mid and hate the best players. Branta says, Calafiori sometimes drift forward as well. I've just at least seen Calafiori play left-sided center back, whether that's for Italy or for us, and look competent. I don't think Kiwior in any scenario looks confident at left-sided center back or at left back. He just always has a moment of just complete and utter brain deadness, and I know that a lot of it is pace, which Calafiori also has the issue with pace, but I'm talking about just very simple things. What was the game that we played the other day and he came on and played? Kiwior came on and he got the ball and he was around the corner flag, turned around on his left foot and passed the ball straight to the opposition player. When you clear the ball, you never clear it centrally. And he did that, and they could have scored if they were any better. It might have been Chelsea, because that's the last game that we played. I'm telling you, Saliba let the ball bounce today, and Kiwior could not just smack it out. He let it bumble. Traore put a little body on him, and he was gone. So it's not even just pace. It's brain dead moments where I think he gets nervous or something, and he just makes the worst decision you could possibly ever make. Douglas says 4-3 Sociedad. Mr. Gegenpress says, are we entertaining Saka left back? Just a thought. No. Listen, fucking Ian Wright has had first pictures back at Arsenal since the dreaded put Saka at left back during the Euros. The Euros were this past summer. That's the last time we've seen him at Arsenal. That is how bad of an idea it is. That is how egregious it would be to start the game against Real Madrid and Saka is defending Rodrigo. No, absolutely not, man. I get what you're saying. Are we even entertaining it? But I don't think so. When you've seen how much better we look today going forward, you got to bet on Saka at right wing. You have to bet on it, even if that's all we really have. Jagoon says Kiwior and Calafiori will both get cooked, but at least I know Calafiori can score the most random goal or grab an assist. He's also just more confident. Calafiori's problems don't stem from a lack of confidence. It stems from maybe a lack of, experience in wide channels against such aggressive and fast wingers. It's, maybe being overzealous in the way that he wants to attack the game. But I cannot back players that are scared and make bad decisions because they're rattled. And so Calafiori will always be a player that I rate because his mistakes either come from just a lack of he's never going to be fast, so it just is what it is, or maybe just a little bit of overzealous, but he has the audacity and the personality to make special things happen in big moments. And we're going to need special things to happen in big moments against Real Madrid. So just the whole ethos and aura and life and thing around the two players are completely different. Kiwior scared, Calafiori confident. Kiwior shy, Calafiori like audacious. You know, Kiwior like scared of his own shadow. Calafiori wants the big moments in the big games. The achievement, like just the players in general, are just completely different. And you cannot go to Real Madrid, can't play against Real Madrid with anybody who is scared. Timber, I know, is not scared. Raya's not scared. Saliba's not scared. Gabriel may not be there. Not scared. Ben White, not scared. No one's scared except for Kiwior. He is scared out of his fucking mind. You know? Aha says, what about Rice at center back? I suggested that earlier. I would do that before Kiwior ever hit the pitch. Vince says, how do you get Kala to stay at the back, though? He wanders around a lot. I mean, I don't think he would do that at left-sided center back. It's very low stakes, but when he played left-sided center back with Kiwior in the Carabao Cup against one of those raggedy pieces of shit teams we played in the early stages, he didn't wander forward or anything. He kept his position, and he was the leader. He was the one that was telling Kiwior what to do. He was the leader at the back. He took that Gabriel responsibility. I think him marauding forward is because that's what requires our left back to do. Our left back is required to maraud forward. They don't stay back. In fact, our left back starts most of our attacks, right? So he's always going to have that little bit of, wild stallion thing going on. But I do think that if Arteta says, listen, you need to, temper it back a little bit. I need you to be restrained. I need you to, make sure that you only do these things when it's actually necessary. I'm pretty sure he'll do it. This is Calafiori we're talking about, not, some academy kid. Calafiori played high stakes games in the Euros. He's played big games for us. I'm not looking at him as like some cannot, do something if Mikel tells him to. I really do think Calafiori has it. Ibby says, but hey, we beat 2011 Barca with a buoy and De Juru. So whoever it is, just hoping we have a belter and they have a stinker. Scored is the perfect word. Scared is the perfect word for Kiwior. He feels nervy 70% of the time. John says every game for Kiwior is like a confidence boosting game, and he progressively turns into Rob Holding with each game. Yeah. John says Calafiori is a man. And even if Calafiori makes a mistake, which we have seen Calafiori make a mistake, you rarely see him go into a shell and then make another one and another one. Like, case in point, we had a really bad start to the game at the Etihad earlier on this season where I felt like he was not in the right position and that gap got opened up between him and Gabriel on that side. Haaland runs straight down and puts the ball in the back of the net 1-0 early doors. You know that was not the plan. But there was never a moment where I felt like Calafiori got down on himself or didn't think that we could win the game, and then he turns around and scores the equalizer. The type of goal that's a special moment in a special game that doesn't happen when you're playing your pretty patterns and you're doing all that type of stuff. Nobody else on this team shoots the ball from there. They get it from Martinelli and they pass it across, or they hold on to it and then pass it back to Martinelli. This is what I'm saying. I'm saying we are going to fuck up and make mistakes against Real Madrid. If you think Real Madrid are not going to score a single goal across 2 games, of course they are. They're going to score goals. We're going to make mistakes, but you need players that are not afraid, and you can't have players without a goldfish memory. Kiwior holds on to every single mistake that he makes. And like when he got cooked by Sane, then he turned around and fucked up again instantly. We can't have that. Rob Holding is another one who does that. He gets cooked once and then cooked again and then cooked again. Ramsdale was another one. You made a mistake, fucked up again. You can't have somebody that takes you out of the tie completely. And this sounds so harsh on Kiwior because I do like him, but we're talking about the biggest game of our season, so there's no real reason to mince words. He's not good enough, and there's no way he can play in either one of those games. I would play Tierney before him. I'd play Rice back there before him. Like, there's just no way. And that's mostly because I know those players are not scared. Burmy says Kala is quality. He just needs to hone his skills. I like him, man. John says, I think Calafiori is meant to partner Saliba in the future if both stay. Antonin said, what in the Kiwior witch hunt have I stumbled upon? My God. Ebenezer says, I hope Gabriel's injury isn't serious, but Saka doesn't look 100%. He wouldn't look 100% though in his first match. He basically has the Everton game to really get going. But even with, not looking 100% after being out for 2 months, he still looked fucking good. So I wouldn't expect somebody who's been out for so long not to look themselves. We need Calafiori. We didn't concede a goal home or away to Galacticos with Flamini, Senderos, Torre, Abui against R9, Beckham, Raul, and all these guys. Brantel says, yeah, we can't go back to the holding settings. We need a Real Rumble at the Emirates. He just makes everybody seem more nervous, and he's definitely nervous. So no. Blaze says, yeah, we beat Real Madrid with a back line. I remember these. I remember these games. MOG says the only person who still believes in Martinelli. Listen, Martinelli had a really, really good game today. He was man of the match. It's about consistency. If he has this game and then has a stinker against Everton, then it's all for nothing. Remember, this Martinelli has not been good for 2 seasons. We are 9 games away from the end of the second season where he has just not even been anywhere near himself. So you won't get many jumping for joy or, pizza parties and, any about faces or 180s on Martinelli off of the back of one game. But if he can maintain this level from now into the end of the season, then I think people will maybe feel differently about him. But it's all about consistency. It's been 2 seasons. That's what I would say. It's not like he was good last season. He was really poor last season by his standards, and he continued that on to this season. So, I wouldn't expect too much from people that have given up on Martinelli, but I will not even lie and say that I think that he was bad, because I think he was really, really good today. That's the best he's looked since the 2022-2023 seasons. That's the closest he's looked to it, so yeah. John says, I have a feeling that Martinelli might be the key man next week. He has pace and game will be open. And I hope he is. John Donut says, exactly, Jess. Mr. Gegenpress says, can Berta play center back? I don't think so. Osmond says, the way Kiwior makes everyone nervous, Saka makes everyone more confident, doesn't need to be 100%. We look so much better with Saka out there. It wasn't just, he makes everybody better, just like Osmond is saying. Caleb says, I've been lacking motivation to follow the season ever since we got kicked out of the domestic cups. Thanks for the great content, Jess. Good to see Saka back. I think a lot of people have it's been like a very flat season, I think, for the fans and for the players and what we're getting out of it. But, it's only 8 games until the end of the season or whatever. And these are our most important games. And at the very, very least against Real Madrid, I just want to see them actually play and perform. I feel like most games in Europe under Mikel end up feeling like we didn't play like us, like we didn't really show ourselves or show our individual quality. And I know in certain positions, we lack maybe some of that individual quality that other teams have, but even the good players that we have don't tend to have really good games under the lights in Europe. So that's kind of my expectation, is that we are, I wouldn't say very likely, but the odds are against us to go through. So at the very least, I just want to feel like at the end of the 2 legs, I'm not saying we didn't have any chances, we didn't have any good performances, I'm expecting these guys after last season, especially, to get out there and show what they got, because Europe in these latter stages is all about individual moments. It's not about pretty patterns and what you've been coached into doing and all that. If you don't perform individually and beat your man and win your individual battles, you will go out. You will go out and you will go out sad, so that's all I want. Arthur says, it's easy to focus on the negatives in the league when these games feel pointless. Any positives feel worthless when the Prem is over. Johnny says, Arsenal always shit in Europe. That presses against the minds of the players. I give us a 30% chance just because we look good against teams that open up. Osmond says, I don't know if you have the Madrid game in front of you, confirmation that we will be playing a transition game. I know some people were saying that they anticipate Real Madrid sitting in against us and countering, and I just don't think they'll respect us that much, if I'm really, really honest. I don't see them respecting us at all. I think they think it's going to be kind of an easy game, or I don't think they're going to respect us. I think they're going to try to come at us. They're going to go, especially if they don't see a Gabriel back there. So it will be more of an open game, so that suits us in some capacity. It doesn't suit us in others because when we get the ball on transition, whoever receives it from whoever's deepest tends to take the worst touch I've ever seen them take on transition. It doesn't matter who it is. It could be Martinelli, it could be Odegaard, it could be Trossard. Whoever receives that ball from the defender, their first touch never sets them into a position to go forward. It always sets them to slow it down, take 2 more touches to get control of the ball, and then pass it fucked up to someone else. If we are playing a transition game, we're going to need people to remember how to transition. It's something that we've kind of struggled with for a while now. Burmy says, if we stay in second after this injury-riddled season, it shows that we have the talent to win the league if we add depth and quality. He says we are so bad at transitioning or countering quickly, so frustrating. We need to be perfect next week. Karubal says, why does this fan base try to undermine Martinelli's efforts? They treat him like Rob Holding. Respectfully, if you remember the talk about Rob Holding when he was after he scored the goal at the Etihad and was smiling, then you would never say that Martinelli is spoken about in the same way as Rob Holding. I think what it is that Martinelli has been poor for 2 seasons. And so people that really do back Martinelli feel like he's been unfairly judged because ultimately you've been watching the game with Martinelli color tinted glasses where you can see his hard efforts and you can see him running around and trying. But people that expect probably something different from Martinelli or maybe not Martinelli stands or whatever, just don't see those things, So I kind of get what you're saying. Maybe there has been an element of harshness around Martinelli, but he's been incredibly poor for 2 seasons. I have to be so honest. I'm so sorry. I don't know what game you've been watching, but last 2 seasons, he had his chain snatched by Trossard. He's just not been good. I don't know, especially from the player that he was when he scored those 15 non-penalty goals. The drop-off has been insane, whether that's been through injury or lack of confidence or change in system. It's been a long enough period of time now. Remember, we have 8 games left into the end of the season. So it's been a long time where people have been shouting into the clouds and shouting into the air about, but Martinelli did this, but Martinelli did that. That was a long time ago. So I think you have to give people some grace as well, that when you see somebody and they're not performing, I mean, fucking Henry went on CBS and was calling him out on the big Jumbotron. Jed Spence was asked about him a couple weeks ago and he laughed. Ola Aina laughed about Martinelli. It's not just Arsenal fans undermining him. The football world is undermining him. He's not getting called up for Brazil anymore. It's not just us. I think it's been a long enough time. Case in point, if we started next season with Odegaard playing the way that he's been playing this season, and he goes a whole nother season, we'll be having the same, if not harsher, conversations about him, because again, then the last season that he was good will be so long ago, So I think you just have to keep it real sometimes, that you're not going to get people blowing smoke up somebody's ass for running around and pressing and trying when we're not scoring enough goals. Our attack has pretty much left us for dead the last 2 seasons, especially at the beginning of last season and then the whole entirety of this season. You're just not going to get a lot of people cheering about Martinelli. It's just not, I don't know what to tell you, but take this victory today. He was man of the match. He was so good today, and hope that he can replicate that form against Everton. Because if he can, I'm telling you, people will come around quick. If he finishes out the season strong, people will come around quick. So, but you shouldn't be expecting a lot after one game, especially it's been 2 seasons. Brantel says Martinelli lacks the decision-making in the final third to create goals. Jordan says Jed Spence laughing at Martinelli shows why he plays for a classless club like Spurs, bang out of order with no professionalism. John says, if we get through, I cannot wait to watch ESPN Talk Sports, CBS Golazo, in the way that they have already written us off. Johnny says, all in all, I don't care what Martinelli does right now in no pressure FC games. Show me you're a man against Real Madrid and I'll respect you again. Jado says, Martinelli is not one of the golden boys. Vig says, I swear to God, I don't want to see Timber against Everton. Rest him until Madrid. League is gone anyways. Let's see. Kimberly says, Nelly also wanted to show out for Berta, but respect. Blaze says, some of our fan base are very naive. I don't think Madrid players are scared of Marino. 100% Jess. Martinelli has dropped off this season. Johnny says, I always respect Martinelli's efforts. I only disrespect his quality. He's regressed terribly in the last 18 months. Big says Arteta said struggled early on. Why did he keep him on then? This manager keeps making nonsensical decisions. Ibby says we were so bad. Oh no, I read that one. And whataboutism to me just doesn't work when it comes to, certain players, but what about so-and-so? What about so-and-so? Martinelli has been getting, I think, the criticism that comes with poor performances. And I think all of last season, there were a lot of excuses around the system and not having Jesus and not having Xhaka and not having this and not having that. Those excuses ran out this season. So what about Odegaard? What about so-and-so? Martinelli is the only player in this team that from the 2022-2023 season has regressed over the last 18 months. He was one of our best players along with Odegaard, Saka, and all of them. And he is the only player that has regressed to this level. So whataboutism doesn't work. It really, really doesn't. If you're a huge, and I will say the same thing about Odegaard. If he has another bad season, then the conversations are what they are. It's no longer a situational, maybe it was the injury, maybe it's the system, maybe it's this. You cannot be consistently poor over 2 seasons. A poor season, I can stomach. 2 bad seasons, that's who you are, man. That's who you are. And so let's see how he does against Everton, because all of this is going to seem so bad if all this whataboutism, if he goes back to the same shit against Everton. Just, he's the man of the match today. The problem with Nelly's discussion is Arsenal fans joining rivals that were trigger happy to call him shit. He's far from shit. He's not Rodrigo, but a good player to have in a title squad. Kimberly says they need to laugh at him again. It will help him prove himself. John says Saliba needs to go up another level next week. He's been making some questionable mistakes in some games this season. I think the problem with Saliba is, and it's a tiny-ish type of thing, is that I think he needs to be next to a stronger personality. I think he is kind of like he needs a little bit of protection from his partner. And when he doesn't have that, whether that's with France or with us, he tends to look shaky defending in the box. I think one of his weaknesses is defending in the box, the typical getting the ball out, making sure you don't lose your man, getting to the ball before someone else clearances, those things he struggles with. And the bouncing ball, the bouncing long ball that we saw today, it was a long ball and he let it bounce and then it caused a whole shitload of problems where, Gabriel usually just sweeps that stuff up and kills that stuff. He's a really good, one thing that Gabriel excels at is box defending. When we talk about the back to the wall, kind of we're against it and, we're just getting killed. He is one of the best at that, where Saliba to me doesn't have those capabilities. And that's why the yin and the yang of the two work so well, because whatever the other doesn't have, the other makes up for, and then the things that they have the same, they times it by 100, so all of that works together to create such a great center back pairing. If Saliba doesn't have the leader back there and he doesn't have somebody that's going to pick up the slack with the box defending and head the ball out and all that kind of stuff, then you start to see his weaknesses a little bit more. And they're slight weaknesses, and everyone has weaknesses, but they're exacerbated when, whatever. There was a game not too long ago that Gabriel did not play, though, and I thought Saliba played really well. You guys will remind me, but it was sometime this season Gabriel didn't play. And I forget who played next to Saliba, but Saliba really stepped up and played well in Gabriel's absence. You guys will remind me who it was, but if I'm remembering correctly. And so he'll have to have one of those types of games. Saliba has it in him, but over 2 legs against Real Madrid, it'll be tough. It's going to be tough. But he's Man United. Yeah. So I thought he stepped up really well in that game, but it was dead United at home, so, but still, he was really, really good. So yeah, John says Saliba is going to do a 2-man job next week because Kiwior will knock us out of the Champions League. Barry Burns says if fit, who partners Saliba, White, Timber. To me, it has to be Calafiori. If it's not Calafiori and the other two are available, I would prefer Timber to play center back and White to play right back. As he's coming back into the team, I'd prefer him to play in a position that's more native to him now, going into a center back position next to Saliba. I feel like that'd be a lot for White coming straight back in. I think Timber's a stronger defender, just in general. I know he's not tall, but he's a better defender. So that's what I would do. We need 2 of them to be fit, like I said earlier. John says Saliba is going. Oh, yeah, I read that one. Sorry. Kimberly says Fulham. He even scored as well, I think. Yeah, he had a good game. And the goal that we conceded came from a Kiwior fuck up. I fear. Yeah. So. Brantel says some teams have figured Saliba out this year, and he's just going to have to go up a level. Saliba is 24 years old now or some shit like that. Like, he's really young still. And, center backs do not reach their prime until 27, 28. He has time to move through these and kind of like, because remember, Gabriel was somebody who had weaknesses when he was around the same age, 22, 23, when we first went after the title, and even the season prior when we were trying to get into top 4. And now you can't remember the last time Gabriel fucked up. We just have to remember that even though Saliba is a prospect and he's one of the best young center backs in the world, or the best center back in the world, he still has room to grow. So I'm not like alarmed by it, but I just know that it's just there. Like, it's just the reality. He has these little things that he needs to work out. John says either Calafiori or Timber. Kimberly says, what's Calafiori's injury? Is it serious? I don't know what he did during an international break. I just hope it can be fixed until then, or fixed by the time that we play Real Madrid. He would be the ideal person to bring back in to keep things a little bit more simple. Because once you start talking about adding Timber or White into the center back pairing, then you're moving Saliba to the other side. It's getting a little bit more tricky, so I'd prefer that. Ash says, would you play Rice? I would definitely play him before I put Kiwior back there. John says, I love watching Partey line breaking passes this season. He's been really good, to be honest. I thought he had a really good game today. He looked refreshed. He looked ready to go, which we're going to need him to play as good as he possibly can, against Real Madrid. Let's see. So yeah, let's see. Who do you guys have for man of the match? I'm pretty sure it should be Martinelli. Yeah, Nelly, 66%. I think he was far and clear the best player today. And what he did for the goal for Saka, I think, is exactly what we've been missing from him. Just get good balls into the box and good things will happen. And, cooking your defender when you have him on toes. Keep doing that. And, I'm hoping that this form, this little bit helps, a little snowball, for the rest of the season. Because him and Saka, when they're on it, are one of the best wing pairings in Europe. It's just been gone for so long, but when they're on it, they're almost like Saliba and Gabriel with the yin and yang type thing. They have different pros and cons and pluses and minuses, but the two of them together can be so dangerous. And so, for the last couple of games, I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it. So well done him. Make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel on your way out. I really did, enjoy, chit chatting with you guys, of course. We will see what happens. Most of the time after, I may not be on tomorrow unless something happens, but Thursday, you guys know I do the show with Judge Mo, and then me and Diluted will do something. So that'll probably be like that, maybe the next time that we reconvene. So yeah, unless something happens, or maybe I just decide to do something random tomorrow. But make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel on your way out. And yeah, I will see you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.